Good evening, everybody. This is Pedro. Welcome tonight's class. Today is Sunday, June 21st. I forgot the month for a moment there. So June 21st. And it is 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock. So we are ready. The weather is really nice today. Very warm. Today is the shortest day of the year. That means the days from now will be longer. I'm sorry, today or tomorrow. I believe it's tomorrow, actually. So today or tomorrow is the shortest day, and then the days will get longer. Unfortunately, the days will be colder for the next month or so. So also, as you know, I'm still using something called StreamYard, as you can see on the screen. I can't use YouTube yet because they haven't fixed the problem. It's really a problem because it will not permit me to watch my screen and look at look at my PowerPoint and also the screen at the same time. So sorry about that. But let's go ahead and get started. Don't forget, if you have any comments, I will not see them when I go to the PowerPoint presentation. So we're about 2 minutes into the presentation, and I'm ready to get started. So let's go. I'm going to go to share screen. This will take me a few seconds here as I do this. And there we go. We're on share screen now. Crazy, isn't it? And let's go to our PowerPoint presentation. All righty, let's get started. As you know, this is Vamos Começar. Let's get started. And we will get finished in about 50 minutes. I'm hoping 45 to 50 minutes. I want to keep these shorter than before. All righty, stuff. You know this every time we look at the stuff. Bold will be the new text. Anything that is new, it will be in bold. Remember that I designed these for my 2 classes on Thursday. So some of the text may be new, some of the text may be old, but please be patient as I do this. So bold will be the new text. Italics will be prepositions. I hopefully got all the prepositions. Some of the phrasal verbs I don't put in italics. And then the asterisk will be the adverbs with ly at the end. Brackets will be the participle. Remember, this is past, present, and future participle only. Will not include the perfect tense. And anything with a red letter. Red letters will be words with any, some, no, and every. So these are crucial for everybody. And then we have today, underline, will be the auxiliary verbs. Auxiliary. That is a difficult word. Hopefully you can say that better than me. I have problems with that word. So today we're going straight to the expression of the day. Believe it or not. All righty. Now, the expression of the day is put a person on the spot. On the spot. Now, spot is lugar or mancha. Now, parking spot would be vaga de estacionamento. So parking, you guys, I think, know already, is estacionamento. So parking spot will be a vaga de estacionamento. So it can be a place or mancha. And here's, I have a spot on my shirt, mancha on my camisa. And then what is put a person on the spot? Make a person decide or do something that isn't comfortable. This comes from the game shows. I don't know what game show it translates to. I'm sorry. In Portuguese, where they have on television the shows where they ask, for example, who wants to be a millionaire? And you sit in one spot, and everybody watches you sweat, suar, for money. So that they usually they stand on a spot. I believe that's the origin. I don't know. And we're going straight to the presentation, and here it is. Your head is your world. Is perception reality? Sua cabeça é seu mundo, né? Então, alrighty. For example, occasionally I'm called to preach somewhere, usually in a small church somewhere. Preach is pregar, and as you know, somewhere is algum lugar. I'm called to preach somewhere, some small church somewhere, and this is what I see. Okay, and I see a Billy Graham when I preach, but what does everybody else see? Todo mundo, well, they see this guy. So perception definitely is reality, I suppose. In my head, I want to be something other than Bozo. And now the book of Galatians. Let's look at the book of Galatians. We looked at it last week. And it's written around 48 to 50. Some people think it's around 55, 56, but it was 5 years. So around the same area. But there's at least 25 years after the resurrection. This is at least, pelo menos, 25 years after the resurrection. And, well, we don't know for sure. We don't know. Nobody knows the time, and we don't know exactly who Paul wrote it to either. And this is the negative também, either. We don't know who Paul wrote it to. We'll find out in a minute. Now, the bad news is, well, for the Galatians, he was not happy with them. The good news, boas noticias, is this is about restoration of the Galatians believers. Now, Galatia in Paul's time. Here's a little map here. Here's a map of Galatia, and you'll see it's a little slice, a little piece of Turkey. Now that we call it Turkey. It's part of Turkey today. And it was part of the Roman Empire. And the history is fascinating. Not fascinating, but there's a lot of things that happened in Galatia. It's in the middle of nowhere, really. So back then there were no rivers, no boats. But there's an interesting community. Now, Paul was from Tarsus, and you can see Tarsus on the map. It's just to the east. Leste, you see it to the right on the map. You see Tarsus there. So he's close. Now, Paul probably knew the area. Remember, he was a citizen of Rome, Cidadania Jehoma. So he probably had money. So he probably traveled. So he probably knows the area, or knew the area. I'm sorry. And when he was apostle, he visited Antioch at least one time. So pelo menos uma vez, at least one time. Now we need to, if you look on the map, you see two Antiochs. Antioch in Pisidia and just Antioch, which is more to the right of Tarsus, you'll see on the map. I believe there were 16 or 17 Antiochs in the area. So it was a popular city. But this is different from the Antioch that to the right of Tarsus. That one is much more popular, has more history. So he visited Antioch at least one time. Now, ethnic Galatians lived in the north. Again, it's a fascinating discovery or fascinating history. These people moved around, and they were called the Celtics. In Greek, it's called Gaul. So these are Galatians. So these are ethnic Galatians. And Julius Caesar, he said, this guy, Julius Caesar, he said they had red hair and wild eyes. Olhos selvagens, I guess, is the best way to translate that. So far different than Turkey today. And in the south of Galatia there were many Jews in the area, Antioch, Lystra, Derbe, in that area. So there are a lot of Jews, and then the ethnic Galatians lived in the north. So it's divided. The ethnic Galatians, and then we had the more cosmopolitan south of Galatia. Então, now directions. Here's real quickly, we'll look at directions. We looked at north. In the north of Galatia were the ethnic Galatians. North in Portuguese is norte, then east is leste. Now this country or this area was north and south. Then west is oeste, and then south sul. So we looked at north and south. By the way, if you see the initials there, iniciais, we have news, NEAWS. So that's why we call them noticias. Someday in class, or if you want, I can explain if this a little bit more, the history more in detail. It's fascinating, not fascinating, but it's interesting history for in the United States. Então, now this is still a problem today. A region or people. So it exists in Brazil. Here's a map of Brazil. But this is the same map according to Paulistanos, and you see that's a little different here in São Paulo. Anything to the north, I discovered, is called Bahia. So, welcome to São Paulo, everybody. They just they treat everything to the north a little differently. It's just everything is Bahia. So I discovered. All right. Now let's look at the vocabulary. We have hypnotize. You guys know what this word is. This is hipnotizar. Portray. Portray is retratar. And then we have a portrait, or picture, that I don't like, but portrait would be retrato. So portray is retratar. Supply, we have two verbs in Portuguese. Can be fornecer and can be providenciar. So we'll have to look at those. And there's another verb too that I need to look at again on but you have the idea. Credit, this is easy, creditar. Rely is depend, depender, rely and depend. Now rely has more of a trust than depend. I rely and I trust in you. Not just I depend on you to do the things, but I trust you. There's a nível de confiança involved. Curse it can be a noun or a verb. As a verb, amaldiçoar. Desculpa, this is a word that I'm not familiar with. Now, it can also mean maldição, a curse. And we'll look at that here in a little bit. Now, like English, it only has 5 letters. Okay. Suffer, you guys know this one. Sofrer. Practice, praticar. Replace is substituir. Substituir. Now, you see the word place. Place, replace. Maybe ao invés de make a verb out of ao invés de. In place of. So replace something. I broke my television. I need to replace it. I need to substitute something exactly like it or close to it. But I need a television to put there. So, all right. Forge, falsificar. Falsificar. Especially forged documents. Então, holiday. This one, you know this one. This is, nossa, holiday is, nossa, what is holiday? Holiday is, nossa, everybody's probably yelling at your computer right now. Holiday is feriado. Feriado. I'm sorry, everybody. Feriado. Now, in holiday, you see two words there. Holy day, Dia Santo. Those are we didn't have holidays 200 years ago. Christmas is new. Actually, 1836, almost 200 years ago, was the first official Christmas in the United States. So, holiday, holy day, Dia Santo, now feriado. Sorry about that, everybody. Now, shepherd, you know, this one is pastor, shepherd. Ethnic, we looked at earlier, ethniko. Ethniko, you guys can see that. And the next two, ahead of time and advance, really mean the same thing. In advance, antecipadamente ou antes de tempo. Now, to me, there's the same thing. The only thing we wouldn't use ahead of time in a contract, contrato. We would say in advance. So it's a little bit more technical language, in advance. Ahead of time, it's I arrive to work ahead of time, not in advance. So I can see there's a little difference, but really they mean the same thing. Redundant, redundante. It's easy, just put an E on the end. And then wild, we looked at wild, selvagem. Flesh is carne. Now, carne in Portuguese can be flesh and also can be meat. So I ate carne for lunch. So it's not flesh. You had meat for lunch, not flesh. And then righteous and righteousness. Righteous is justo. And then remember with ness on the end, happy, happiness, feliz, felicidade, sad, sadness, triste, tristeza. Here we have justo y justiça, righteous and righteousness. All right, long words. Now this time it's English is a little longer than the Portuguese. Sorry about that. Nobody asked me. All right, let's go to the text. This is Galatians chapter 3, the first verses in chapter 3. You foolish Galatians, who has hypnotized you? Before your eyes, Jesus Christ was clearly portrayed as crucified. I only want to learn this from you. Did you receive the Spirit by the works of the law or by hearing with faith? Are you so foolish? After beginning with the Spirit, are you now going to be made complete by the flesh? Did you suffer so much for nothing? If in fact it was for nothing. A little confusing, sorry. So then, does God supply you with the Spirit and work miracles among you by the works of the law or by hearing with faith? Just as Abraham believed God, and it was credited to him for righteousness, then understand that those who have faith are Abraham's sons. Now the scripture saw that God would justify the Gentiles by faith and told the good news ahead of time to Abraham in advance, saying, all the nations will be blessed through you. So those who have faith are blessed with Abraham, who had faith. For all who rely on the works of the law are under a curse, because it is written, everyone who does not continue doing everything written in the book of the law is cursed. Ooh. Now it is clear that no one is justified before God by the law, because the righteous will live by faith. All right, let's go directly. Verse number 1. You foolish Galatians, insensatos, who has hypnotized you before your eyes? Jesus Christ was clearly portrayed as crucified. So we say we have two of the participios, portrayed as crucified. Now in Portuguese, you use enfeitiçar, and this is a better verb. I think this is better, enfeitiçar. It's a little strong, but it's better. Now, who hypnotized them? These were people called the Judaizers. They're Jews basically, and they told them you need to be basically Jewish first. It's not in the Bible, but this is we can read this. So faith was not enough. You had to do the works of the law. Here it is. I only want to learn this from you. Did you receive the Spirit by the works of the law or by hearing with faith? And here it is in Portuguese. You see in English, it is the works of the law and hearing with faith. Now, these are true to the ancient Greek, more or less. I'm not a Greek expert, everybody. I'm sorry. I have enough problems with English and Portuguese. So the Greek, ancient Greek, I depend on my sources online. So very good sources, by the way. I don't know if they are available in Portuguese, but it's fantastic in English. And in Portuguese, here you have prática de lei and fé naquilo que ouviram. So this is a little bit different. Now, this is true to today, but it's not. I have problems with prática de lei. Later and next week, we will find out. So now, Paul put them on the spot. He asked the question, I only want to learn this from you. Did you receive the Spirit by the works of the law, by hearing with faith? Un poco grosso, né? He's not happy. He put them on the spot. Now, the works of the law are important. We need to understand this concept, and next week we will look at this more in detail. But works of the law are the 613 commandments that are found in the Torah, the first 5 books of Moses. And then there is the oral law and traditions. These were impossible to keep. It was work just to keep these commandments and these oral laws and traditions. So, então, so it's different from the practice of the law in Portuguese. We'll take a look at that. The Jews believed they were saved by works or actions. Works or actions. And how many were saved in the Old Testament by the works or actions? I asked this last week. Hopefully you remember, but the number is exactly 0. Not one more than 0. 0. Nobody was saved by their works or their actions. They were saved by faith, just like today. Anyhow, now the works of the law, this is not found in the Old Testament. This is a strange concept because it's not found in the Gospels. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they're not found there. It is there is only one place you will find it, and that is Paul's epistles. Only Paul, in his letters, does he mention the works of the law. But there is one other place you can find it, and that is in the Dead Sea Scrolls, Manuscritos do Mar Morto. Very fascinating. Now, these were mainly written more than 100 years before Galatians. And it is true, you will find them, and most of the when they mention works of the law, these are ancient. They're before Jesus when they mention the works of the law. They were not happy with them. Now, the law and the works of the law, there is a difference. They are not the same thing. The law leads to faith. Now, leads to faith. I don't know if you would say conformi, but guia to faith for those under the law. Those who are under the law are guided by the law to faith, but only if they let it. So, guiado, but they have to be disposto, willing to follow the law, under the law. Remember, you can lead a horse to water. Remember this expression? Levar un caballo to the water, but you can't make him drink it. So the Jews had the same problem. To the Jews, works of the law were good enough. Remember this word from last week. Good enough. Suficiente. The works of the law were good enough. But they lead only to more works of the law. That's why it was work. The Sabbath was work for them. To keep the Sabbath. To me, it's work. Intel. But we have to remember works of the law exist today in the church. These are some surprising examples. What are they? Read your Bible. Works of the law. Go to church. No, Pedro, you're wrong. That's not That's not a work of the law. On baptism, Pedro, you're out of your mind. You went loco, foi loco. And I hope that's correct, my Portuguese, but it is true. These do not replace faith, and for many, these are replacements for faith. They replace. They need faith. They don't mean anything until you have faith. Until then, it's just exercise. It's a work of the law until you have that faith. Então, verse 3, are you so foolish? After beginning with the Spirit, are you now going to be made complete by the flesh? Então, so now here it is in Portuguese. Here they use perfect tense. Tendo começado, having started. Can be, here's one time the Portuguese uses the perfect tense and the English doesn't. Usually it's the English loves the perfect tense and Portuguese doesn't. But the verb here, they also use it, aperfeiçoar. Aperfeiçoar. Now that means perfect. By your own efforts. Esforço, efforts, we will look at that another day. But the verb they use is perfect. Now, complete and perfect can be the same thing. We have perfect sem erro and perfect completed. So complete and aperfeiçoar can be the same thing. That's why we use tempo perfeito. This is an action that was completed. Perfect tense. An action that was completed. Not perfect, not sem erro, but completado. Very interesting. Então, now Paul put them on the spot again. Are you so foolish? After beginning with the Spirit, are you now going to be made complete by the flesh? They started out well. Now here I use started out well. They mean the same thing. Out adds nothing. We also use that with help. Help out just means ajudar. Start out can mean começar. Same thing. So welcome to English. We love sometimes that preposition. I don't know if we just like that T sound, out. I don't know, or up and down. Então, for another day. And it didn't take long. Não levou muito tempo for them to be deceived. We looked at deceived last week. Remember, decepcionar. It didn't take long, apparently. And then here they said, have so. Are you so foolish? What are these? We have 6 options. Sim, assim, então, para que ou tanto. You have 3 seconds. Então, what is it? Here it is tão. And remember with tão or tanto, we need an explicaçãozinha. Então, where is that? Well, I'm sorry. It is with after beginning with the Spirit, are you now going to be made complete by the flesh? This question after, are you so foolish? There is his explicaçãozinha. Então, verse 4, did you suffer so much for nothing? If in fact it was for nothing. And almost the same thing. Inútil, they use for nothing. Now, for nothing here is em vão. It can be em vão in Portuguese. And em vão in English is in vain. So if you need em vão in the future, it's almost the same thing. In vain, em vão. Então, inútil. Inútil is useless. Remember, sufixo less? Now, menos, sem. Nenhuma. Inútil. And let's look at dias úteis in Portuguese. Sorry for my English. I forgot to put the acento. Dias úteis, work days, Monday through Friday, except holidays. So Monday through Friday. Então, did you suffer so much for nothing? If in fact it was for nothing. Paul suffered a lot in Galatia. And probably the Galatians suffered too. Probably. So And also Paul uses in fact. And in fact is common. You don't see it in Portuguese. De fato. And then so again. Is it sim, assim, então, para que ou tanto? Here is tanto. If you remember tanto or tanta, they use tanta. So where is the explicaçãozinha? Well, it's for nothing. For nothing. Did you suffer so much for nothing? There's the explicaçãozinha. Então, verse 5. So then, does God supply you with the Spirit and work miracles among you? Entre, by the works of the law or by hearing with faith? Remember, entre can be among and between. By the works of the law or by hearing with faith. Here it is in Portuguese with a few more words. The last, the verse com a qual receberam a palavra. Então, usually we say perform miracles. In Portuguese, say realizar. Here it's a different verb though. It's work. In Portuguese, operar. Use operar. Então, Paul put them on the spot one more time. Does God supply you with the Spirit and work miracles among you by the works of the law or by hearing with faith? Hearing with faith. What is that? Jesus said this. He who has ears, let them hear. Aquele que tem ouvidos para ouvir, ouça. Now this is a condition of the heart. It's not a condition of the ears, obviously. So hearing with faith. In verse 6, just as Abraham believed God and was credited to him for righteousness. And almost the same. Ele creu em Deus. Now here, believe and believe in are not the same thing. And we will look at this here in a little bit. His faith was not righteousness. His faith was not righteousness. Abraham believed God. This is something different. He believed. Ele acreditou, creu. Então, the righteousness was part of his faith kit. Kit de fé. And every one of us receive the same faith kit. We received the same faith kit. And Abraham believed God. Ele acreditou. It's different than believe in. Eu creio em Deus. Eu acredito Deus. Duas coisas diferentes. And here's Abraham, literally Abraham believed God. Not Abraham believed in. We'll look at Abraham's story later. Mais tarde. Então, verse 7. Then understand that those who have faith are Abraham's sons. So, estejam certos. A little different here in the Portuguese. Now, esteja certo is be sure. Be sure. We love that word sure in English. Very common. Can I go to the mall? Can I have 2 more reais? Sure, Pedro, you can have 2 more reais. I'm dreaming. Okay. So, então, be sure. Now remember, esteja, and for in Portuguese do not really exist. It's a form of verb to be, usually, but not always. They almost always form the verb to be here. As I mentioned, seja bem-vindo, you are welcome. So, Paul definitely was not happy. This is not a happy man. 3 times Paul put them on the spot. So he and now I have a picture of Paul. He's not a happy man. Here he is. Oh, he's on the Silvio Santos show. Hey, I can't believe it. Silvio Santos knows everybody. So, all right. So, understand is an imperative. Imperativo. Understand. He's not asking them to understand. He's telling them, understand. Oof. Now, according to Jewish legend, Abraham stands at the doors in heaven and lets all the Jews enter. Deixa só os judaicos entrar. So this is a little interesting what Paul is saying here to the Jews. But Abraham is the progenitor. You have the same word. You'll never see this again. Progenitor of the household of faith. That Jesus came from Abraham. That's a different thing, but he is the progenitor of the household of faith. So we looked at household of faith last week. That's the family of faith. And we will look at this and then at least next week. So, verse number 8. Now the scripture saw that God would justify the Gentiles by faith and told the good news ahead of time to Abraham in advance, saying, all the nations will be blessed through you. And here it is in Portuguese. Now here it says, prevendo a escritura. Justificaria would justify the Gentiles. Now this is a future conditional, so that's why we have would. And anunció primero as boas novas a Abraão. Por meio de vocês, todas as nações serão abençoadas. Now, ahead of time and in advance here are redundant. Actually, we don't need them. And here in Portuguese, they don't include ahead of time or in advance. Just prevendo. And in English, we don't need. Told the good news to Abraham. Now the scripture saw that God would justify the Gentiles by faith. Told the good news to Abraham, saying, just like you have in Portuguese. Nobody asked me when they did this translation. So, all right. All nations, all the nations, you see this a lot in the Old Testament. It means basically Gentiles, or it can mean races. So, but all the nations is important to remember includes Israel. Israel is included in all the nations, not just the Gentiles. So, now some words operate in time and space. Time and space, tempo y espacio. One of those words is long. How long is a football game? This is time. Football game is 90 minutes. So this is time. How long is my desk? This is tamaño or comprimento. My desk is 1 meter long. So long. When another word is through. Now through is através, as you can see, or por meio. I drove through Guarulhos to go to Rio de Janeiro. I drove through Guarulhos, através. She works Monday through Friday, segunda a sexta. Here's a little different, and it's difficult through in times. So segunda a sexta in Portuguese. Now for time, it's different. It's from 9 o'clock to 6 o'clock. And then we have, you see here, all the nations will be blessed through you. Por meio, but can be através, same thing. Então, verse 9, so those who have faith are blessed with Abraham, who had faith. That's pretty easy, except they use são de fé, are of faith. Those who are of faith. So those who have faith are blessed. Então, Genesis 17:4, this is God speaking to Abraham. This is my covenant with you. You will be the father of many nations. And the law came much, much later, at least 430 years later. We don't know, but that's what Paul says. We will look at Abraham later, as I said. It's an interesting story. Verse 10. For all who rely on the works of the law are under a curse, because it is written. There's curse, maldição, because it is written. Everyone who does not continue doing everything written in the book of the law is cursed. Alrighty. So here in Portuguese, it's much the same. They use apoiar. And you know, apoiar from last week is support. Suportar or apoiar. And also remember, insuportável does not exist in English. Suportável, insuportável does not exist. We need to figure another way to say that. And we'll talk maybe next week. I will include that. Now, support or rely, which one is correct? Support or rely? To me, that's two different verbs. Depender or support. Which one is correct? Well, neither. Nenhum. Nem. I'm sorry, nem. Nenhum. It is the verb to be in Portuguese, in English rather, in Greek. Sorry. Então, now did Paul just contradict himself? Remember last week we looked at contradict, contradizer. Did he contradict himself? Ele mesmo. Well, let's take a look. For all who rely on the works of the law are under a curse. So they rely, apoiar the works of the law are under a curse. And then he says, everyone who does not continue doing everything written in the book of the law is cursed. Who does not continue doing everything written in the book of the law. Now, one is the law is the works of the law are bad, and the book of the law is good. I'm confused. No, I'm not confused. Which one is it? Both of them. Because here he's talking about the works of the law. The works of the law are bad. They're under a curse. The book of the law is something different. And we will look at this next week. It's important to understand this, the difference there. Now, Paul suffered a lot from the Jews. There's our word suffer, sofreu. He brought them shocking news, chocante. He brought them shocking news. This was something totally different. The works of the law are bad. But the law is good, but the works of the law are bad, how they've been doing it. Now we have to change. We need faith. This is totally new to them. And he had to deal with many things. Now remember, deal with is lidar, Sculpa, used italics, with, that's a phrasal verb. Deal with, lidar, with many things. Many Jews wanted him dead. Oh, he wrote when he was in where was he? In Rome, I believe. They wanted to kill him, and they were death sentence. They wanted him. Well, they were waiting, and then when he gets out, well, I think that was Rome. I forget, or Jerusalem. He almost died many times. He almost died many times. In his as apostle, he went to prison. You know this word, prison, and some letters were forged. Now here's that word forged, falsificar. This is a problem that continues to today. Some letters were forged, and I didn't put the brackets on there. Some letters were forged. There's another one I forgot the brackets. Forgive me, perdoa. So some letters were forged. Not that they took his letters and put their name on it. They wrote their letters and put his name on it. So they were trying to confuse the readers. And now, why would anybody forge letters? To confuse the readers, obviously. So that's what that was a big problem in the first generation. There was a lot of confusion. I'm sure this is not isolated, isolado, with just with the Galatians here or anywhere. And this problem continues until today. And we'll talk about that later. Then we have verse 11. Now it is clear that no one is justified before God by the law, because the righteous will live by faith. Now this is here it is in Portuguese. Now here it says evidente. In English, it's the same word, evident. And at the end we have pois. Pois o justo viverá pela fé. And remember, pois can be because, for, or nothing. And here it is because. I have a problem with this because, not because of because, but because of the first one where it says no one is justified before God by the law. We will talk about that more next week. and the righteous will live by faith. The righteous will live by faith. That's found in 3 New Testament books. That's Romans here and Hebrews, Hebrews. That comes from the Old Testament, Habakkuk in English. And we also need to remember that faith and the law are not opposites. They are friends. They're friends. They're not the same, but they are friends. And this is something we need to look at next week. Flashback. Remember this from last week? Flashback. Did Jesus come to fulfill the law of Christ? Cumprir a lei de Cristo. Remember, Jesus asked this question, what is written in the law? He asked this to the expert in the law. Remember, expert is especialista, lay. So what is written in the law? And he said, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind. This comes directly from the Torah. I think this one is from Deuteronomy. And love yourself, neighbor, as yourself. This is from one of the other books, I think Numbers. Love your neighbor as yourself. Now, love is the end of the law. Now, we need to look at this word, end of the law. And so is faith. Faith is the end of the law. And we will look at that next week. Now, end is not final. It can be final, but also can be destino in Greek. Can be and many people translate it as final of the law. But we will look at that next week and put this in perspective. But so is faith. So is faith. Faith is the end of the law. Now, I want to close with this article. This is a newspaper, a journal in the United States, the Washington Post. According to a Washington Post news article, Christians are poor, uneducated, and easy to command. Pobre, não tem formação, or boa formação, maybe, e fácil de mandar. Now, generally, the first 2 are true. This is true. According to statistics, estatísticas, the first 2 are true. Christians have less money, and they don't have the same education. But we will look at again next week. Fascinating. Então, but easy to command, fácil de mandar. Is that true, Pedro? Yes, it is also true. We are easy to command. Everybody is easy to command. We just don't know it. Especially when you're younger, you're easy to command, and they we'll talk about this in a later date, later class. Everybody is easy to command. That's just the nature of humans. We don't think so. We think that we are culturado, I'm hoping, and sofisticados. No, we are easy to command by society, by many things. Now, Isaiah in 53:6 said something. All of us are like sheep. And remember sheep from last week? Cordeiro is sheep. I'm hoping that's correct. That suddenly my Portuguese is leaving me today. All of us are like sheep. And sheep are not the smartest animals. They're not as animais mais inteligentes. So sheep are not the smartest animal. And they can be led. Now, led can be take, and we looked at this, take, or guiar. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink it. And sheep can be led away easily. You see this word facilmente. They can be led away easily if they don't listen to the shepherd. Here, shepherd is pastor. Now, Jesus said, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd gives his life for the sheep. Yes, he did. And he also said, my sheep listen to my voice. I know them, and they follow me. Now, what happened to the Galatians? They stopped listening to the good shepherd. Now, remember, these are difficult times back then. This is the first generation of believers. Remember with Peter, the good news is we have their book, the story of the Galatians. So we know about restoration. And they started to listening to people around them. Alhidor, and these were the Judaizers. And they wanted to make everybody happy. So that happens. We say compromise, and you say it in Portuguese too, comprometer. We compromise to make people happy. And we see it all the time today. They made nobody happy. This is including Paul. Oof. I would hate odiaria to get a letter from Paul, anybody. You bozo, you big bozo, what are you guys doing there in Galatia? But it can happen to anybody at any time. We just need to listen. It happens when we stop listening to the good shepherd. We need to always listen because he's always speaking. We just can't hear it because we're not listening for it, but we know his voice. Então, this is the bad news. What is the good news? Boas noticias. What is the good news, Pedro? Well, Galatians is all about restoration. Restauração. Paul was not happy. He was not kind. Now, kind here, I would call it simpático. He was not kind. He was a little maybe grosso. Would you say grosso in Portuguese? So he was not kind. He was not happy. But he knew what it took to restore them. Era preciso to restore them, and maybe he needed that restoration too. Years before, we don't know. But he knew about Peter as well. But we'll look at those later. And with all of us, it takes maturity. I've talked about maturity, spiritual maturity. It's a question of listening to God's voice when he talks to us. Are we ready to receive that? So if not, we can be easily led on the wrong way, o caminho errado. But again, this letter is all about restoration. All right, we will stop here, except we'll look at the text one more time. You foolish Galatians, who has hypnotized you? Before your eyes, Jesus Christ was clearly portrayed as crucified. I only want to learn this from you. Did you receive the Spirit by the works of the law or by hearing with faith? Are you so foolish? After beginning with the Spirit, are you now going to be made complete by the flesh? Did you suffer so much for nothing? If in fact it was for nothing. So then, does God supply you with the Spirit and work miracles among you by the works of the law or by hearing with faith? Just as Abraham believed God and it was credited to him for righteousness, then understand that those who have faith are Abraham's sons. Now the scripture saw that God would justify the Gentiles by faith and told the good news ahead of time to Abraham in advance, saying, all the nations will be blessed through you. So those who have faith are blessed with Abraham, who had faith. For all who rely on the works of the law are under a curse, because it is written, everyone who does not continue doing everything written in the book of the law is cursed. Now it is clear that no one is justified before God by the law, because the righteous will live by faith. And here we will end. So thank you everybody for coming. See you next Sunday or in class. Don't forget, if you have any questions, feel free to send a message on WhatsApp. Or if you would like, if you're not on my WhatsApp list, send me a message somehow, and I can put you on my list. We'll start sending more messages, more verses later. So good night, everybody. Thank you for coming, and see you next week or on next Sunday. Thank you very much.